Recording in progress is now starting. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Tamar, all the way from America. So I truly appreciate that, as does everyone in the community. So if you could let us know a little bit about yourself. And I know that you are a certified a co-parent coach. So we're all here to listen to some wonderful advice that you can help us with.
Oh, well, I hope that that's true. Yeah, thank you all for coming. I know it's kind of late for you, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here too. So yes, so I am Tamar Burris. I am a life coach. I'm a co-parenting coach. I'm a single mom. I wrote this book for families called A New Special Friend, which is about introducing a new partner to our kids. So I work with blended families on that level also. And today we were talking about, I'm here to talk about communicating with our co-parent, how to be a more effective communicator, how to make ourselves have a bit of a more peaceful time, whether the other person is high conflict or not. So that was kind of the general theme that I'm bringing to the table with the talk. And then of course, if you have any questions regarding that or anything else with co-parenting, please don't hesitate to ask them, and we'll see what we can get to throughout the discussion.
That's wonderful. Thank you so very much. I'm just letting a few others in now.
Sure. Shall I just get started talking about communication, or should we wait for people to come in, or how do you want to?
Well, let's start with communication, because I think that if we sort of start with, like, obviously where you coach and you help with co-parents, communication, I feel, is the biggest thing that causes such a problem, generally because of emotions. So maybe it would be quite nice to just give us a little bit of an idea of that from your point of view,
Absolutely.
and then we can go through the other questions and things.
Okay, absolutely. I just wasn't sure if we should start. So, okay, so the bottom line with all of you, you all know you're all single parents. You have some sort of a co-parenting relationship, whether you interact with your co-parent or not. You know, and the term co-parent, I just have to say too, is sort of a loose term. We tend to say co-parent as if we have this like really tight relationship, as if we're raising children, you know, together as co-parents, and that's not necessarily the case always, as some of you might know. A co-parent is just the other parent. You know, it's just an easy term to use for the other parent. And what your co-parenting relationship looks like is very unique depending on your situation. It might be that you're friends. It might be that you cannot talk at all. It might be that you're raising kids like in parallel parenting and you're completely side by side and you don't engage at all. And that's okay. So the term co-parent is just a very loose, term that covers all the grounds of just two parents who had children who are raising them. So just, I like to start with that, because I think that one of the things that gets us a lot of times is this idea, this guilt idea that like there's a way that you should be co-parenting. There's this way that things should be, and if you're not doing it that way, then you're doing it wrong, or that your kids are going to suffer or something. So as a co-parent coach, I work with people to help them understand that that is not the case, and that you are only in control of yourself, right? You're not in control of the other person, and the relationship that you have with the other person depends on both of you, but you can work on yourself and your communication to make it more effective on your end, and to try and keep the peace as best as possible, no matter what they're doing on the other side. So when it comes to that, when you think about being a co-parent, you have to remember that you were once with this person. Usually you usually had a romantic relationship with this person. Sometimes people come together and have kids and they didn't, and that's fine, whatever. But in this case, we're talking about, two people who had been together for some length of time and had children, and now you're split apart and you're raising kids. And how do you do that effectively? So the first thing that I like to remind people is that, that relationship ended. And when that relationship ended, you are starting a whole new thing with this person, and you have to get to know them in a different way. You have to remember that when you're raising kids together, you are not in a romantic relationship. You do not owe one another the same emotional connection that you had before. And so it's time to change the patterns that you had in your relationship. And that really helps the communication. A co-parent is someone that you are in business with. You're in the business of raising children together. So if you can think of it kind of more in those terms as a coworker, how you show up to work and how you engage with a coworker is going to be very different than how you show up to a romantic relationship and how you engage with your partner, right? So if you are having trouble in your co-parenting relationship, take a step back and you look at them as your coworker, and you're going to engage on the level that you would engage with a coworker, where you can get something done effectively and efficiently, but you're not going to bring your emotions to the table. The emotions are the thing that can really, really trip you up. So oftentimes we have triggering co-parents. They know exactly how to push our buttons, or they're very high conflict. They try and push our buttons, they engage with you in ways that steam you up and get you really hot and excited. And you want to defend yourself. You want to attack them. You want to, but you have to take a step back and remain calm. You always engage from a calm space when you're dealing with your co-parent. No matter how riled up they are, if you stay calm, the conflict cannot ensue. Like, the conflict ends. It really does. Even though it feels like it can never end, the conflict ends when you don't engage in it. It takes two to have that battle. So you have to step back and not engage in conflict. And how you do that is you keep yourself calm, and you remember to be mindful when you're communicating. You want to keep your conversations with this person, if their conflict is, you want to keep it short. You want to keep it brief, right? You want to keep it really focused on the children and on the facts. And you want to keep your boundaries really strong. They don't need to know anything about your personal situation. You don't need to answer any questions or go into anything about the details of your life at home. It's really about the kids. That's what you're engaging in, right? This is your work project. The kids are your work project. So that is what we need to talk about, the kids, and that's it. And you keep the focus there. And if they try and go off tangent, you have the right and the permission to ignore them when they're asking things that are out of line, or when they're attacking you, and you refocus it back on what needs to happen. And you just bring it right back to the kids. So, one of the resources that I love to use with teaching people how to communicate more effectively with their co-parent is this book. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Bill Eddy, but he is an American mediator and lawyer, and he's been working in conflict training for a really long time. And he has this program called BIF. He does it for work, and this is specific for BIF, for co-parent communication. And I use this with my clients all the time. And it's BIF is brief, informative, friendly, and firm. And that's how you want to engage: brief, informative, friendly, and firm. You don't need to give extraneous information. You don't need to explain yourself and leave it open to a constant battle. And you keep those boundaries firm, but you keep it friendly and polite. And you just keep it on that neutral level as best as you can. And then the conflict, I don't want to say it magically disappears, because you can always have someone who's trying to attack you, but the conflict cannot grow. You cannot feed the fire when you are being calm, and you're being brief, and you're being rational, and you're being accurate, and you're keeping it to the information, and you're keeping it polite, and you're keeping it above board. So I don't know, those of you who are here, those of you who are listening, I'm not sure, of course, like what your personal relationships are with your co-parents. I don't know how high conflict they are. I don't know how close you are. I don't know how intimate you can be with them. So I'm really talking from a point of, when you have conflict, because that seems to be, the reason why people come to these conversations is because they do have conflict and because they need to work it out. So I am definitely talking from a position of conflict and high conflict right now. So BIF, it's a great guide. The other thing is that, think about how you're communicating with your co-parent. There are a lot of different ways to communicate. And if you are finding yourself under attack, or you're finding yourself engaging in aggressive or conflict behavior all the time, then conversations in person are probably not going to be the best and healthiest way for you to go. You want to take a step back and do things in writing. If you can do it via text, email, that's fine. Choose one to be your avenue of communication and communicate in that way. If you're really high conflict, and or if you need information for court systems and whatnot, then a parenting app is really, I think, the best thing to do, because a lot of the parenting apps, like Our Family Wizard, and I'm sorry, I'm not quite familiar with what you guys have available over there too, so I'm not sure, but the parenting apps are set up so that, generally speaking, the texts are admissible in court, so that you can have financial aspects in there and schedule aspects in there, and it can all be in one place, and you can shut it down. You can turn it off and leave it to the side. If you have a co-parent who constantly pesters you and attacks you, or gets at you at inopportune moments, and is just like texting, calling, whatever it is, when you use the co-parenting app or the parenting app, that you can choose a time of day or a time of week when you check it. And that's the only time you have to check. You don't have to keep it on notification. So it doesn't have to invade your life in the same way, which is really nice when you need a break from the conflict. So that's, I like parenting apps for that reason. And not everyone has to use them. It doesn't have, it doesn't have to be something that everyone needs. But if you need it, then they're there for you and they are a great resource. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm beginning with this idea of communication and avoiding conflict. So I don't know if we have any questions or if anyone wants to go any further with anything particular about communication.
Well, I think that
Yeah.
as part of within the community, it's like that's why predominantly a lot of us in the community find it so hard, because of the emotional part behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it doesn't, I don't say it doesn't matter who left who or anything like that, but you know, in my experience, it's the emotional part. My emotions always want to respond
Mm-hmm.
as the parent together. But then that just causes so much more conflict. So do you have any tips with how we can sort of dim those emotions? I know you said about children obviously have to come first, but sometimes emotion overrides that, I find.
Yeah, it can override that, and it takes practice and it takes time. And so you have to have outlets and avenues, like, you know, the Frollo community is a place where you can vent, right? This is where you can talk to other parents about some of your issues, and you keep it off of the table when you're talking with your co-parent. If you have a really close friend that you can trust, you can send them the text that you want to send to your co-parent that you shouldn't send to your co-parent. You know, you can vent that way, and then you send the one to your co-parent that's like straight up and, you know, just the information only. Therapy is great. You know, you need to have outlets where you can have those emotions that are healthy outlets for you to express those emotions, because it is no longer healthy to do that with your co-parent. And it is something that you just have to learn over time and with practice. Is you take a step back when you engage, you take a deep breath, you count to 10, and you think, how am I responding? Where am I responding from? You know, is what I'm saying helpful? Is it going to change the situation? Does it have anything to do with our kids? Or is this about me? You know, ask yourself that question before you respond. And if it's really more about you and your own feelings and your triggers, then you need to wait until you can calm down and respond from a different place. Take a step back, take a walk, go have a sip of water, tea, something you need to do to just like recenter yourself and start learning your body awareness too. Body awareness is really crucial. Everyone has different tells about your emotional state. Some people, your heart starts to race, or you start to sweat, or you feel this like, oh, feeling in your gut, or your shoulders start to tense up really tight. You know, start paying attention to your body and seeing where your stress triggers are. Because if something is said to you, or you're engaged in a conversation with your co-parent, and you can feel those stress triggers in your body, then you know that's an indication that you are in an emotional state, and your response is going to come from that emotional state. So you need to get out of that, and you need to recalibrate and calm down. So getting to know your body and having really good outlets for your emotions, taking a step back and counting to 10 before you respond are all really good tools.
Great, thank you. A couple of questions. So any good examples of setting boundaries with a narcissist as the parent?
Don't give them any information. Boundaries are really hard, and narcissists are really tricky. So a narcissist is going to try and pull you in, and a narcissist usually cycles. They're not always going to be angry and aggressive. Sometimes they're going to be really kind, right? And they're going to act like they are there for you, and they're always fishing for information, and that information can always be used to hurt you later on. So boundary setting with a narcissist, the key thing with a narcissist is not to give them too much information. Do not give them anything extraneous. Keep it really, really on point. So, for example, they don't really need to know about your dating situation, do they? Like, they don't need to know about anything that happens when your children are not in your house. They don't need to know anything about your personal life. So if they start asking those questions, you can ignore it, or you can say something to the effect of, I don't feel comfortable sharing that. Or you can just send it right back to us, something about the kid. Did Johnny leave his jacket at your house? Sorry, my earbud fell out. So setting boundaries with them, the most crucial point in setting a boundary with a narcissist, in my opinion, is to not give them information that they can use later on. Don't give them extra information that they don't need. The other thing is to not apologize to a narcissist. That's a really good boundary, is that you don't apologize and take credit for everything. Rather than apologizing, you can say something to the effect of, like, if they say that the kid is hungry when they came from your house, and like they're always hungry when they come from your house, instead of saying, no, I'm sorry, you can say something like, what do you suggest? Or you can say something like, thanks for letting me know, or I will provide a snack next time. Keep it really, really clear and really, really short. Those are two things with most narcissists, is not apologizing and not giving extraneous information.
Thank you. Ryan,
Yeah.
did you want to add anything into that? I can see you've got your hand raised.
Yeah. No, I've a very interesting ex-partner, and information sharing is a serious issue. I'm using the Family Wizard WhatsApp in order to try and keep a parenting schedule somewhat, or to get a parenting schedule somewhat established. But it's very difficult to deal with my ex. She's very good at changing plans and continually manipulating everything. But every time I seem to put down in my parenting schedule when I am unavailable to look after the children, usually because of work or whatever reason, or even weekends off. I'm doing my best to have alternating weekends, but she insists on having a split weekend, which is pure silly. Like, I'd have the kids on Saturday, then she'd have them on Sunday, and sometimes it's even she'd have them on Saturday morning and I'd have them on Saturday evening, and she's nuts. Every time I put information on the parenting app, straight away then she wants to claim that weekend. How do you manage, so you're sharing information literally to mind your kids and coordinate child minding activities, but it's very it's a battle of wits all the time at the moment.
Yeah, that's really tricky, and you sort of have to play a little bit of a game and see where it goes to some degree. So like, if you have a work thing for a weekend and you are not available, so you're putting that on our Family Wizard, right? And she's going to come back at you and say, I want that weekend. You have to use really firm language. I am not available this weekend, period. I'm not available. I'm doing this work thing. I am not available that weekend. Done. And if she says, I want that weekend, I'm not available that weekend. I'm not available that weekend. You just have to stick with your guns on that specific thing. And she's going to give you trouble, probably. And then she might even say, well, like that, then the kids will be alone or something. You have to push it as far as you feel comfortable pushing to call her bluff. You're not available. And if you're the first one who said it, then, that's, you're calling it. I need that weekend. I'm not available that weekend, period. And she can get childcare. It happens. People get childcare. And if there's some reason why she can't get childcare, maybe she can't afford childcare, maybe you guys want to work out something where there's some sort of payment schedule where you help one another with that, that's up to you. But you have to set a very, very, very firm, very clear boundary. No, not available that weekend. I'm just not. And don't engage.
Thanks. Bill Eddy has another very good book, How to Deal with Difficult or Mediation in Difficult Situations or something like that. Yeah,
he's great. I mean, his whole thing is really based on BIF, and it doesn't really matter what book you get. It all has the same, the co-parenting just has co-parenting examples, but it's all basically the same formula. And he is very, very clear. He is a wonderful resource.
Brilliant, thank you. Another question. Again, it's about setting boundaries because it's so hard, because the triggers are constant because they still cohabit.
Oh.
Any advice on how we can sort of help the boundaries within that?
I mean, I guess in order to help the boundaries of that, we have to have a little bit more information about which boundaries we are really talking about when you're cohabitating, or just I guess in general, because boundaries are different depending on, I'm not really sure. So if we're talking about maybe the other parent doesn't take the kids when they're supposed to, or, doesn't adhere to that same kind of schedule type of thing, then you have to make sure you leave the house. You have to make sure that you are not available, that you're clear with your boundary. Same thing that we're just saying with Ryan, like I am not available that weekend. And then you have to figure out a way to not be there, to not be available. You have to follow up your boundary with action in order for them to start understanding that is a clear boundary and that you are not going to budge on whatever that boundary is. And if it's like doing the dishes, you have to let their dishes pile up. Even if it bothers you, even if it's disgusting, you can leave their dishes in a certain spot or something and they just keep piling up there. You have to follow through. It has to have action behind your boundary. And you have to know that when you're setting boundaries, it's hard. And at first it's much harder. It's much easier to give in you don't have that fight. But when you set a boundary, there usually is a ramp up. There usually is more conflict when you set that boundary, because they're going to press against the boundary, and they're going to see if you know, it's like with a toddler, they're going to press against the boundary. And if you don't hold firm, then they're going to know where you'll cave, and they're going to keep doing it. So you have to hold firm, and you have to hold that boundary no matter how uncomfortable it may feel. If it's a boundary that's important to you, you must hold it, and eventually it will stay.
Thank you very much. I hope that's helped. So another question from our community. So I'll read it out, okay? So the other parent has started introducing makeup to our daughter, age 10. I've said to my daughter that when she is 11, I will pay for the makeup artist to come and help her apply makeup naturally and age appropriate. I've explained to the other parent, and he knows how I feel, but he says that he will do what he likes when his daughter is with him. Sorry. I want to navigate this, and I want to be in charge of that particular area with my daughter about applying makeup. The one parent wants to do that. So do you think that she is being unreasonable? And how can she talk about it? And does she have any difficulty? She has difficulty with then having to talk to the daughter about this, but she feels that she's not being unreasonable. But I think she thinks that she might be, because of the question, really.
Okay. Well, I don't like the word unreasonable. She's not being unreasonable. She's being a parent, you know, and she's setting the guidelines that she would like to have with her child. And that's totally understandable. That's not out of reason. It's not unreasonable. However, you are living in a split family where there are two households, and you don't have any control over that other household. So provided the dad has a safe home for your daughter, and your daughter's enjoying the situation, and there's nothing going on there that's really putting her in any level of danger, you don't have a say over the kind of makeup that happens at the dad's house. And it's not unreasonable to hope to have that say, but you don't. There is zero control. It is not an issue that you can control. And he has been particularly clear about that. You don't have a say in his house, and you don't. So when your daughter comes home to your house, you can set your rules. I know you're allowed to wear makeup at dad's house. That's fine. Dad is allowed to set the rules at his home. This is my home with you. And in our home, we don't wear makeup. And next year in our home, you're going to have a makeup artist who's going to show you how to do that. And then I will allow that. But until then, when you're with me, we don't wear makeup. And that's as far as you can take it. You really have no say in the other household.
Yeah. And again, that goes back to the boundaries in each home, isn't it? As well.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to think about too, like, do you want him stepping in and saying what you can and can't do in your house? You know, you don't. And so you really have to look at it from both directions.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. It is hard.
That's why we have you. Okay, so then, from a father from the community, how do you cope when one parent is wrapping one of the children in cotton wool and not nurturing them to develop the age-appropriate skills that they need? They feel that they have spoken to the other parent, but again, nothing is really happening.
Well, again, that kind of fits in the similar category of you don't have any control over what's happening in their household. So you have to take a real look at that when you say they're wrapping them in cotton wool and they're not allowing them to develop, you know, at what level are we talking about that? Is that, do you want them to be more mature, or do you actually see an unhealthy stagnation that is detrimental to your child? You always have to make that determination. Is it an unhealthy, unsafe situation for your child? Because if so, then this is something you can dig in on, and you can seek legal action to alter that. But if it's not, if this is just your opinion and you would like to see some more happening from your child, you have no say. The mom can baby and cater to the kid as much as she would like to in her home, and you do what you do in your home.
Okay, similar thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Another one. Are there like
Sorry, my dog is. I'm like, oh, I thought he's barking up. It's okay.
It's no problem at all. Are there any restrictions with how the other parent would cope with sleeping arrangements, the type of beds that children are in for age appropriateness, cleanliness, whether they're bathing, whether they've got clean clothes on. They sometimes come home in really dirty, soiled, awful clothing. Where do we feel that the boundary is with the co-parenting to step in?
Okay.
Or can we?
Well, this is crossing a stronger line. I mean, in terms of bed arrangements and safety for bed sleeping arrangements, that's tricky. I'm not really sure what the question is there. Are the kids safe where they're sleeping? Are they sleeping with another adult who they don't know? I mean, are we putting them in tricky situations? Like that gets blurry. And then you talk about lack of cleanliness and dirty, soiled clothes, and that the children aren't being cared for. That does border on neglect. So you do want to start writing things down and taking inventory of that. If you see signs of neglect in your children, then you are going to want to step in. Now, this is not just like, your kid has grass stains on their knees, or they come home after a birthday party and they've got like cake on their face or something. This is truly like you're seeing a pattern of your kids coming home very, very dirty, in soiled clothing, smelling bad, maybe they're hungry, they're exhibiting signs that they have not been well cared for, then that is going to border into neglect. And that's when you want to start seeking legal advice and see what you can do about that, because that's a safety issue for your kids. That's not necessarily a control issue. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that goes back to another question that we've had, which is the balance of the intervention when there is a safety or a care issue. And then, like you just said, the advice would be to take legal advice and to document everything.
Yeah, you want to document everything when you start seeing some issues and signs of issues. You want to document everything. You want to have your kids in therapy. You want to seek some legal counsel and see what you can do. Now, I'm not in the UK, so I don't know, what the laws are there, and I don't want to step into that. And I'm also not a lawyer. So even in the United States, when someone comes to me with signs of neglect, I tell them right away, therapist and seek legal counsel, because I don't want to steer you in any direction that is not appropriate, and I don't want your kids to be in an unsafe situation. That said, it is really up to you to identify whether this is truly an unsafe situation or if you are just really seeking control, and you have to separate yourself from this, because when you start taking legal action, right, and you start trying to make changes, it's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you time and energy. It's going to be emotionally draining, and it's going to affect your kids and their schedule and their relationship with the other parent. So you want to step in if you need to, but you also want to be careful about when it is you step in and really know what it is you're doing and what you're getting into. I've had people who say, like, for example, I had a mom who was really upset because she's very Catholic, and the kids were being raised Catholic, and both parents had agreed that the kids would be Catholic, and then they split up, and then the dad is no longer Catholic and is no longer sending the kids to Catholic school, and blah, 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 blah. So she was really upset, and she wanted to go back to court over that. But you have to think about things like, okay, yes, you could go back to court over that. Yes, you could drag everyone through that. You could get witnesses. You could, spend however much time and money you want to go to court for that. But what is it going to gain you? And are your kids actually unsafe? Or is this just a priority in your mind? So you really, really have to separate and come to grips with, like, what is important, whether they're safe, whether they're not safe, and what you can truly do about it.
Thank you very much. Another interesting one. What happens when children get older when we co-parent? Do the boundaries, do we still have to communicate as the parents, or do we sort of lend that then into our older children and them to, fly the nest and have their own relationship with the co-parent, the parents? Sorry.
I mean, again, that depends on your individual situation, of course, like, again, whether there's conflict or you're friendly, or, how smooth things are between you and your co-parent. But I do think as kids get older, they can definitely take on more responsibility with their relationship with their parents. I mean, they should be taking on more responsibility in their life anyway. So if you see them able to handle that, and you see that the other parent has a healthy relationship with them, then yeah, absolutely, I would leave a little bit more to your child. they're older, they need to start navigating their schedules a little bit. You can't be in charge of telling the other parent, hey, so-and-so has, a baseball game this weekend or a party this weekend or whatever. Your teenage child can say to them, I'm with you this weekend and I have X, Y, and Z going on. They can have that kind of communication, and you no longer have to necessarily be in there to make sure the homework comes everywhere or the thing goes back and forth, or, so yeah, you can let your teenagers have more of a relationship with the other parent, and you can step back and have less of a relationship with the other parent as they get older, provided it's healthy and it's okay, because you do want to still advocate and champion for your child. And if you're dealing with a narcissist or you're dealing with someone who is abusive or like tricky, you don't want to like feed your kid to the wolves. So you definitely want to still, maintain a level, check in with your teenagers. Is everything going okay? Is there anything you want to talk about? How's life? How's life at your other home? Check in and make sure that it's still operating smoothly and that they don't have a lot of stress and concerns. But yeah, they can definitely take over more responsibility.
That's great. That's probably quite a relief for anybody in the community, that really struggles with co-parenting from the emotional point of view.
Oh yeah.
That's the light at the end of the tunnel. When our children get older, we can pass the responsibility to them a
Yeah.
little.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you truly you can, and you should, because they are more in charge of their own life and they need to learn how to do that.
Yeah, brilliant. And then the last one that I've got for the community so far is that how is the best way as the parents to split things like Christmases, summer holidays, winter holidays, and then about sick days? That comes up quite a bit in the community. So as an example, my ex-husband had my daughter, one of the daughters, and she wasn't very well. So because he had to go to work, he dropped her straight back here as I was leaving to go to work. And he said, well, you'll have to have her because I have to work. And he drove off.
Yikes.
So it's like, oh, thank you ever so much. How friendly are you today? So it's quite a challenge, isn't it, with holidays and Christmas, especially with Christmas coming up now. Is there an easy way to share?
No.
There's not, is there?
I mean, when you say is there a best way, again, it's all very individual. It depends on what's important to you and what you have established in your parenting plan. A lot of people have worked out a schedule where, you flip holidays every other holiday kind of a thing, or you split the day, or you have one has Christmas Eve and one has Christmas Day, or, however you work it in your parenting plan, you should try and stick to that if you can. Again, if you're in an amicable situation, you can have some play there. It's, you want to take your kids on a holiday, but you weren't supposed to have them. Maybe the other parent is willing to work out switching a week, or and you can figure it out among yourselves. But if you don't have that amicable situation, it's really best to stick with whatever you had in your parenting plan as best as you can. As your kids get older, going back to sort of the teenage question, you can also bring them into the fold of like, how would you like to spend your holiday? A lot of times, we all want to participate and we want you to have the family around with the kids and whatever, but it can be really hard on a kid to go like morning with mom and then afternoon with dad and have two different Christmas dinners, and while that gives the parents the satisfaction of having their child, it really can be detrimental on the children. So I would suggest taking a look at your kids, and if they're old enough, asking their advice. You don't have to go with what they say, but you can pull them in with, how do you feel about it? What's your ideal Christmas vacation look like? And it's just about playing with it and seeing what works best for your family. There are a lot of different arrangements you can make for the holidays, and it really just has to be what fits best for your personal situation. The sick day thing is really tricky. It does often happen that moms kind of take the brunt of that, but you don't have to. So it, again, depends on your custody situation, on your financial situation, on how old the kids are, how sick they are, where they are when they got sick. In your case, should he have dropped them off? No. And, if you had known he was going to drop them off and I was coaching you, I would have said leave before he showed up. Because then he can't.
If I'd known, I would have driven off beforehand.
That's right. Right. But you don't know. And so sometimes these things come up. And so what do? You probably just took your daughter for the day because that's what happens. And you don't want your kid to feel like they're in the middle, particularly when they're sick. You don't want them to feel like they're a burden. So you take your child for that day, and then you privately text or on the app or whatever, you say, that was not appropriate. I also had to work today. This is the money you owe me for my lost day of work. And please do not do this again.
It's just so hard.
It is hard. It is really hard, you know. But then again, in certain situations, some parents have it worked out. Like one parent works, like I'm at home, so if my son is sick, I would rather have him come here. I can work, he can watch a movie or something, you know, and my ex has to go out to work, and so we have that arranged. And sometimes that bothers me still, like it does affect me sometimes where I've broken my plans. But he's 7 and I'd rather have him here where he's comfortable, and my ex does have to go out to work somewhere else, and it does work out better for us in our situation to have them come home. But that's not true for everybody.
Maybe it's a sort of a thing that if you can have a discussion, so if they're sick, what we're going to do, or maybe set some new boundaries. Like I feel I need to set new boundaries after what happened the other day.
Yes, you do. You do. Yeah. And so, you know, we don't have a crystal ball. We can't see the whole future when we're getting divorced. But that's why, like, I say, like, work with a coach. Work beyond an attorney, because an attorney will help you set up a parenting plan, but there's only the specifics for like what you need to do by the law. But a coach, like, or a divorce coach or a co-parenting coach, they'll sit down with you and they'll run through like A to Z, like, what do you want to do in 10 years when your child is dating? What do you want to do about braces? What do you want to do about sick days? You know, and so like you can think ahead of time. And again, you can't make plans for everything, but the more you can plan out before it happens, the better, because then you can have those boundaries a lot stronger. But like you say, if you hadn't prepared for that, well, now you can still go back and say, that doesn't work. So this is what we're going to do for sick days from now on. And you have that discussion now, and that's fine.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to do that. Thank you. We've got another question here now from to the Zoom from Caroline. So how do you explain to teenagers why their dad does not want to see them more than 4 days a month? He lives 10 minutes away. He doesn't text or call them. He only works 1 weekend a month and has all evenings off. The children are 16 and 14, and he also doesn't pay any maintenance either. Gosh, that's hard.
That's hard. And that happens a lot. And how do you explain? You can't really explain. You have to be the constant, consistent, loving parent who takes the high road. And that sucks, because I know sometimes you just want to be like, he sucks and he is an idiot, and you know, but
he totally sucks. I'm glad you don't go and say him.
But you can't really explain it, because there's no way to explain it. All you can really say is you can empathize with them. I'm really sorry. I know it's hard and it must hurt. How does it feel? You know, and you can just ask them questions. There's no explanation. It's just, you know, I can't control your father, and we all have our issues, and he does the best he can with what he's got. And I'm really sorry that it's limited, that what he has to give is so limited. And I know that that's hurtful. How do you feel? You know, and you have to be honest. He's limited and he's giving what he can, and it's very little and it's not enough. And that hurts. So how does it make you feel as a teenager? And I think that, you know, you don't want to give too much information about how much he sucks, but you just keep it like that. You keep it really simple. He's limited. He's giving what he can. It's not enough. I'm really sorry that you're not getting what you need. I wish you did. How do you feel? And just keep it without sugarcoating it, so that they know that you're being honest, and that they know that you are there with them, and that what they're seeing is real. You know, because one of the things is kids walk away from some of these situations, and if you sugarcoat it or you try and give them like some explanation and it doesn't sit authentically, then they walk away questioning their own gut. They walk away questioning their own, you know, feelings about things, and that can set them up for disaster later on in their own relationships. So you know, by just not sugarcoating and just saying, that's really hard. I'm sorry it's like this. I don't know what to say. He's limited. He's giving the little he can. You know, what you're doing is you're validating them. You're validating their experience and their feelings. And that is empowering. And that is the best thing and the only thing you really can do for them in that situation.
Yeah. And I guess then onto that part of paying maintenance, that sort of steps into that legalities, which then costs an absolute
We don't talk
fortune.
about that. Yeah, then, we don't. I mean, you don't talk about that with the kids. That's not something you bring up with the kids, because you don't ever want them to feel bad or guilty, or like they're putting you out, or like, you know, they're making you poor, or that their dad has abandoned them to such a degree that he won't even pay for them. You know, you don't want to talk about that with the kids. But yes, that steps into a legality component, and then that depends on, do you want to take him to court? can you provide for your kids without that money? As hard as it may be, if you can provide for them without that money, then maybe you just want to let it go, because this guy's a loser and he's not going to come forward for you, and you're going to spend a lot of money taking him through court, dragging him into this situation that isn't going to help you win. However, if you know that he has money and you know that he has a job and you really, really could use that money, you have to decide what works best for your situation when it comes to the maintenance.
And again, that is so different across everybody within our community, let alone every single parent out there. So it's generally all about having boundaries, really trying to communicate on one source, whether that be a text or an email or anything like that. I'm trying so awfully hard to limit your own emotion. I really liked what you said, though, to have a sounding board of a friend or send a message. Or I had one of those, thankfully.
Yeah, it's important. Well, and Frollo, I mean, you've got this community. You need a sounding board, but you need to make sure that the sounding board that you choose is safe and confidential. That if it's a best friend or if it's a family member or someone, that it's not someone that's going to start spouting their mouth out.
No, Frollo was mine.
No, not Frollo. But yeah.
But no, Frollo was mine, because I would then write things like, "Can you believe this is what happened? Can you believe this was?" And then because other people had the same experiences, how awful, but we did. I sort of felt like, oh, I'm not on my own. And then, okay, so you dealt with it that way. Okay, I might do that. That's great. Thank you. And, it's sort of, that's what helps with a community, doesn't it? We build each other up.
The community is so, so important and helpful. And it is important that you have people who are have been in similar situations, like you say, so they can help you with advice, or they can say, ooh, I did that. That didn't work out so well. Maybe you want to think about doing it this way. And
don't do that. I spent too much money and I wasted it. I lived on beans on toast for a year. Don't do that. And then I know you showed us your book at the very beginning. So before we close for this evening, unless there's any other questions from anybody, what's your book about? So your book, a new special friend.
Yeah, it's a new special friend, and it's for younger children, roughly ages 3 to 8. And I wrote it because in my particular situation, my ex moved on rather quickly, and he had a live-in girlfriend almost right away. And so for my son, he needed to get to know another person, and that was really tricky for me. It was very early on, and I wasn't quite ready to have another woman being a mother and all of these things. And so I looked for a resource that could help me explain to my son, what is happening after the divorce, now that we have new people in our lives. And I also wanted to make sure that he very much understood that it was okay, that he could feel however he felt, that my feelings were separate and he didn't have to worry about me. And I wanted to know, that we're going to be dating and this is okay. And however he feels is fine. It's appropriate. He can love or like or whatever. So, and I couldn't find a book for that. I could not find a book anywhere that really touched on, that specific thing, like dating again and the child's potential feelings with the dating again and the other parent, and coming together and saying, like, we're still a family and we all love you. And this is just one more person in your world who can love you. I couldn't find it. So that is what it's about. And that's what I wrote. It's called A New Special Friend. And it's Little Fox. His dad is dating Donna Fox, and it's Little Fox meeting Donna Fox and getting to know her and going through all the feelings, like feeling guilty about, his mom being alone, feeling scared about this new person and how maybe dad's not going to love him as much. And it runs through all of the feelings. And it's just a conversation opener really for that time period.
And that's amazing, because it is hard for all of us as single parents to even become vulnerable again, to date again. But let alone then to start to blend a family, because I feel you've got all of the children's expectations and upset, and it goes back to emotions again very greatly, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it goes back to emotions all the way. And so that's, even though I wasn't ready emotionally for this to happen, this is happening anyway. And putting your child first means that you set yourself aside and you allow them to experience what they're going to experience without guilt or shame or fear of what it's going to do to you. And for me, I really wanted to set that bar of, like, whether this girlfriend worked out or not, like you're saying with blending, it can be really tricky. And so I really wanted to set that bar of understanding of, like, we are always going to be a family. I will always be your mom. That will always be your dad. And we love you. And we welcome people who love you in your life. And that is okay. Like, I want him to know that throughout, that it's okay to have other people who love you.
And that's a really nice way of thinking about it. It is about other people loving your child. It's
Yeah.
not about taking over, doing other, because that's, you know, the emotional triggers that start with this co-parenting
Absolutely.
journey as
Yeah,
well.
that's the problem that you see in a lot of moms and dads, is like they have that irrational feeling within themselves. And I understand it, where like this person's going to take over and they're going to be a better parent and my child's going to love them more. Or like the makeup question, you know, this person is doing something that I don't want to happen and I'm the mom. Like, well, you have to let go a little bit. This person is actually engaging with your child. You know, this person is taking the time to do something fun with your child and create memories with your child. They are taking the time to love your child. And as a parent, that's something we actually need to leave room to be grateful for, because it's what's happening. You know, we are single and we are opening up to other people. And so to have someone who comes in who actually wants to create experiences with your kid is something that you should be grateful for. It's something that you are lucky to have. You know, someone who cares enough to be with your child and to be doing nurturing activities with them is something that we hope for, rather than having, you know, the wicked stepmom or wicked stepdad. So we have to set our feelings aside and really see what's best for our kids.
Sure. One question, that's come through onto the from the community.
Sure.
Do you feel you should wait until after the divorce before dating again, or at least not let the children know you're dating until after your divorce? That's that tricky line, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, for
Acceptance
you
is
to
key, I
date,
suppose.
yeah, I'm not going to judge when you start dating. You know, some people, when they hit the divorce, they've already been way over that relationship and they've done a lot of work, and it's, you know, 5 years in or whatever, and they are ready to date, and that is fine. So it's, you know, it's your personal situation, whether you are ready to date or not. But yeah, your kids are not ready for you to date. They're not ready to see people. They are not ready to see you in that level of life when you have just divorced, usually. So for me, I the key for me, you know, people say like 6 months, 8 months, whatever. Like, I don't know that there's necessarily like a perfect time frame. What I like to do is say, like, take a look at what's happening with your kids. Okay, get divorced, establish your home with your kids and your new routines with your kids, and see how comfortable they are in their relationship with you and in their new lifestyle. You know, they don't have to be 100% healed from the divorce before you're dating or before you tell them that you're dating, but you do want to make sure that they are comfortable in the life that they have. Give them a little bit of time to adjust. Otherwise, you're going to have a really hard time bringing someone around them. They're not going to like them. They're going to really act out, generally speaking. You know, give them time to adjust to the fact that this is how it is now and this is their new normal, and then bring someone around, or then tell them I'm dating, you know, tell them. And some people feel like you want to tell them that you're dating and then you don't bring people around, but you want it to be a normal part of of a thing, like mom or dad is dating, and then you don't bring someone around until they're like someone really special. Other people say you don't talk about it at all until there's someone really special, and then you bring them around. And you really, I think, have to look at your kids and look at the relationship you have with them and decide what works best for you in that regard. But yeah, absolutely, give them time to adjust to their new normal before you announce that you're dating. They don't need to know.
Yeah. Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you ever so much for all of your wonderful words of wisdom and guidance. And hopefully for all of us here and for everybody else who will be watching, it will really help us to try and remove some of the emotion and really just think of the children, which we feel that we do, but it's the other triggers, isn't it, that come along with that makes it more trickier.
Absolutely. We are always working on ourselves. There's always room to grow. So yes, and I'm here. I'm on social media. You can also reach me via the website if you would like to do any coaching, and I am always happy to answer questions. So if you have any.
That is lovely. On where the meetup is, and we've put all of your Instagram handles and your email and everything like that as well. And then I'll put up a little post for the community who didn't attend.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, please reach out
and I'll use
if you
all
have
of yours
any questions. Okay, sounds good.
That's really lovely. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, and thank you ever so much. It was fantastic. Thank you.
It was fun. Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Stop the video. Oh, I'm here now. Hang on. What's happening? Can you still hear me, Tamar?
I can still hear you. Yeah.
I think
I can.
because I stopped the
video.
video, I think that it went. You know, as in it sort of.
That's all right. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That was really fun.
Oh, thank you so very, very much. And I hope that was okay for you.
No, that was great. Thank you. It was super fun. So I enjoyed it, and I would love to see the video when it's